Hello, fifth graders. Welcome to our next math lesson. It is dealing with chapter 13, lesson 3. The title of our lesson for today is called Write Numerical Expressions, and the lesson is going to begin on page 748. The last couple of lessons that we had, we talked about how we are supposed to, if we have more than one operation, if we have like multiplication or addition, which one are we supposed to do first? And we are finding the exact answer. Well, today's lesson is a little bit different because today's lesson is going to be able to take kind of wordy problems and narrow it down and writing an expression with it. So we don't actually have to find an answer for our lessons for our problems for today. It's being able to rewrite the expression and simplify it a little bit better so we know how to write it using our addition, subtraction, multiplication, or division symbols. So if you look at the page 748, you'll see that there's a word problem. I have it typed right here on the screen. It says, the school auditorium has 546 seats, and those seats are on the main floor. And there's also 102 seats in the balcony, okay? Every seat was filled for all 4 of the variety show performances. So now what they're asking us to do is they're asking us to write an expression that shows the calculations you could use to determine how many tickets are actually going to be sold. Now, when you take a look at a problem like this, I think the first thing that probably comes to my mind is, well, how many seats are there just for one particular show? And if you look at the problem, it tells us that there are 546 seats on the main floor, and there are also 102 seats in the balcony. So I think it makes sense that the first thing we should do for this particular problem is to add those two numbers together. And if we add those two numbers first, that's going to help us find out how many total seats there are for one particular performance. So once we've added those two numbers together, you'll notice that the problem also says that every seat was filled for all 4 of the performances. So there were 4 performances. So once I've added these two numbers together to figure out how much one performance is, the next thing, the logical thing that I probably should do is then multiply that number by the number of performances. And we're going to multiply that number by 4. So what I've done now is I've written what the expression should look like. So I was going to say, so what we need to do is we need to write a numerical expression that represents this problem here. Let's find 4 times the sum of 546 and 102. So what I've done is I've taken this big, huge word problem right here, and I've narrowed it down to look like this. Now our job is to even narrow this even farther down to make it look like problems we had the last couple of days. So now what we're going to do is we're going to actually find the sum. Where's my little clicker here? My apologies here. Well, how about if I just, let's go out here and do this way. There we go. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to take 4 times the sum of 546 and 102. Now remember, I'm going to find 4 times the sum. Now right now, I can't take 4 times anything because right now I don't know what this answer is first. So logically, it makes sense that I would need to do the sum of 546 and 102. I got to do that first. Now be careful, 5th graders, because you'll notice it says find 4 times the sum. You might think to yourself, well, the word 4 times, since that's listed first, that's the thing I have to do first. But I got to make sure to warn you, 5th graders, that when you come across a lesson, especially like today, just because the word times is listed first, that does not mean that's what's going to be done first. You got to read the entire problem. We need to find 4 times the sum of 546 and 102. So when you read this whole problem, that should tell you, you know what? I actually need to add these two numbers first. Then once I add these two numbers together, then I can go ahead and multiply by 4. So I'm going to pull this over. And this right here, let me get back to my pen here. All right. This right here is the actual expression that we are going to be writing for today. Now, you'll notice that there were parentheses put around the 546 and the 102. And you have to put parentheses around that because that's telling us that we have to do that first. If you remember our lesson the last couple of days, please excuse my dear Aunt Sally, right? We always need to do parentheses first. So since this is an addition problem that needs to be done first, I'm going to put it inside parentheses. And that tells me I have to do this first before I multiply by 4. Okay, so this is what we're doing for today. We're going to take expressions that look like this, and we're going to turn them into numeric expressions with the symbols actually in them. Now, here's the good news, 5th grade. We don't actually have to find this answer. Today, we don't have to find that answer. Today, we're just turning it from this line right here into a numeric expression where we see the actual symbols. And we may have to put parentheses in there in our problems. So let's take a look at a couple together. Some of them are going to be pretty easy to figure out. Like, for example, let's take a look at this one here. This first one says to add 8 and 7, then there's a comma, and then multiply by 2. Well, when it's written like this, hopefully you're going to be able to understand, what do I need to do first? Well, it's hard for me to multiply 2 by something if I don't know what that answer is. And it actually says add 8 and 7 and then multiply by 2. So here it says the word and then is telling you that needs to be done second. So the first thing I want to do is I got to take 8 plus 7. So on my paper, I'm going to actually write down add 8 plus 7. Now, I got to be careful. Since I know that's the first thing I have to do, I have to put parentheses around it. Okay? So I'm going to take 8 plus 7. That's the first thing I want to do. And then I'm going to multiply. So then I write my multiplication symbol, and then I multiply by 2. Now, some people might say, Mr. Johnson, what would happen if I just wrote this and I didn't put the parentheses around the 8 plus 7? Okay. Well, according to what we know about the please excuse my dear Aunt Sally, the first thing you'd probably do is the 2 times 7 times 2. And I do not want 7 times 2. The first thing I have to do is the 8 plus 7. So I do have to put those parentheses around the 8 plus 7 because that tells me I have to do this first. And then I'm going to multiply by 2. Okay? Let's look at this next problem here. It says find triple the difference between 44.75 and 22.8. Find triple. Maybe some of you know what the word double means. The word double means you're basically multiplying by 2. So whenever you hear the word triple, find triple, that's a fancy way of writing multiplying that by 3. We want to find 3 times the value. Now, do I know what I'm multiplying 3 by yet? No, because I have to find the difference between these two numbers. Hopefully, the word difference rings a bell to you. The word difference is an answer to a subtraction problem. So that right there tells me if I'm trying to find the difference between these two numbers here, and that's the answer to a subtraction problem, that means then that these two numbers right here are going to have to be subtracted from each other first. Because I have to find the difference of these two first before I can triple it. Okay? So I'm going to go ahead and write my 44 and 75 hundredths. And I want to subtract that by 22 and 8 tenths. And I'm going to go ahead and put a set of parentheses around that because that tells me that's what I want to do first. Okay, so I want to I want to subtract my 44 and 75 hundredths and my 22 and 8 tenths. Then after I get that answer, then I want to triple it, which means I want to multiply that by 3. Now, some people might say, Mr. Johnson, is it okay if we put the multiply by 3 behind it? That's okay, because we know that in multiplication, these can be moved around. But you cannot switch these two around because in subtraction, we can't. I personally just, when it says find triple, since the word triple is out front, I'm going to put that out front. But what you're going to do today is you're just turning this sentence into this equation. You don't even have to solve this today. You're just turning it into this particular expression. Let's do a couple more. First of all, it's going to say we're going to multiply 4 times, and this is my fraction 7/8. I apologize. I couldn't get the fraction right now, so I just wrote it. I'm going to multiply 4 times 7/8, and then I want to add 12. Again, you should see you have multiplied 4 times 7/8, and then. You see the word and then? That tells me this needs to be done second. So the first thing that needs to be done is I have to multiply 4. So I'm going to take 4 times 7/8. Okay. Now in this particular problem, I'm going to go ahead and put parentheses around this just because that tells me that's what I need to do first. Okay. And then I'm going to add 12. So then I put plus 12 down, and that is what I'm going to do. And that is my expression. Now in this case, some people might say, Mr. Johnson, do I really need to have that parenthesis there? Because if I took the parenthesis out, wouldn't I want to do the 4 times 7/8 first? Yes, you would. So in this particular case, the parentheses isn't that big of a deal. I just like putting the parentheses around the things that I know for sure need to be done first. And that way there is no confusion as to what happens. Here's my last example for today. I'm going to add 49 to the quotient of 125 and 5. Well, already I hear the word add 9, so that means I'm going to have to add somewhere, and I'm going to have to add 49. But I don't know what I need to add 49 to. Well, I got to do that to the quotient of 125 and 5. Now, I'm hoping that this word quotient rings a bell to you, because this would be the answer to a division problem. So since I don't know what I'm going to add 49 to, which means that I have to do this first, that means this is the part here that should be put in parentheses. So I'm trying to find the quotient of 125 and 5. So I'm going to put 125, and then I'm going to be dividing because I want to find that quotient first. So I'm going to take 125, divide that by 5. I'm going to put my parentheses around it just because I'm telling you that's what I need to do first. And then I want to add 49 to it. And this is exactly how our problem should look. Okay, again, do you have to have the parentheses around this particular problem? Probably not, because you know that you would do your division first before you add. But as I said before, I like putting parentheses around what I know needs to be done first, because then there's no confusion. Okay, so again, fifth graders, good news. You don't have to find these answers. You don't have to do all this division. You don't have to multiply fractions. Today, you're just writing out the expression. That's all you're doing for today with these particular problems. All right, so to give ourselves some practice on that, we have an assignment that's going to be over a span of a couple different pages. So if you start by looking at page 749 and 750, I'm going to have you do numbers 7 through 11. So that'll be the bottom 5 problems on that first page. And then when you turn the page over, you're going to do numbers 17 and 18. So you can go ahead and cross out 12, 13, 14, 15, and 16 on that particular lesson. Okay? So you can do those numbers. Then when you look at the next 2 pages, 751 and 752, I'm going to have you do numbers 1 through 7, again, writing expressions. Then when you turn the page, you're going to do numbers 13 and 14. So on the back side of that, you should be able to cross out numbers 8, 9, 10, 11, and 12. So these are the assignments that we're looking to do for class time. If you have any questions, please feel free to reach out. I'm here to help you the best that I can. If you want to go back and relook at the lesson, a couple of those examples, please feel free to do that. And again, I'm here for you to help wherever I can. So if not, I will see you with the next lesson.